why did you guys sign on Chris Cuomo to the show? I noticed that when you guys did that, I saw more hate in the comment section than I've ever seen before on Reddit, on Twitter, X. I saw all of these hate comments. What was the strategy behind that? And why have I not seen him on the show in the past few months?
I welcome all the hate. I'm not uncomfortable with that. Some of the people that called me and texted me and messaged me about how disappointed they were, the fact that we signed Chris. If I tell you the names, you wouldn't believe it, and I wouldn't tell you the names. This is not because I don't want to throw them under the bus. It's just a private conversation I have with these folks. But I understand why they would say it, because for the longest time, he made the people that didn't want to take the vaccine seem like they were the bad guys. He was part of that camp that he went through when he was at CNN, the whole ivermectin, everything. We had Dave Smith, we had this debate that took place. Now, for me, my comfort zone is controversy, chaos, and issues. Because if there's not a clash of ideas, you don't get to the truth.
Patrick Bet-David from the PBD podcast went on the Iced Coffee Hour with Graham Stephan and some other guy, I forgot his name, but they pressed him on many different issues, on many different topics that Patrick Bet-David has been pressed on before, but I don't know if he's gotten pressed this much about the Chris Cuomo hire and many other things. And Patrick Bet-David, as he normally does, snapped on them and absolutely destroyed a lot of the woke talking points that they were kind of spewing at him, but also going after mainstream or legacy media, talking about the Chris Cuomo hire and why it was a good thing for Valuetainment and for the PBD podcast and many other things. Let's get into this clip here where Patrick Bet-David sets the record straight for these podcast hosts here from the Iced Coffee Hour.
Independently would call and verify, are these stories true about you? So think about this. You're writing for New York Times. He's an independent company. He calls me and says, hey, Patrick, this is what New York Times is writing. Can you verify these things? And I would be able to give my argument to it on the hit piece that you're writing on me, right? Okay. Ever since 1987, you don't need to do that anymore. The fair doctrine's that, because propaganda became a normal thing. You can say whatever you want. There is no accountability. Nobody can sue you. They used to be able to do that because they used to say a media company, it was called the Thomas Mundt Act back in the days, where you have to give me both sides of the story. That's the Walter Cronkite days. He was a hardcore liberal. Nobody knew about it. He just gave you the news. The moment that's wiped out and the journalistic integrity and accountability is gone, everybody can keep writing opinions, Russia collusion, Elon Musk is this.
Why'd they get rid of that? What was the argument for getting rid of that?
Yeah, so, I mean, the argument was you should let people talk and you should let people present. And then keep in mind, I wasn't involved to know if lobbyists were involved. Because think, if you're sitting there saying, guys, we keep getting hit by these lawsuits, man. If we can sensationalize stories even more, we're going to get more eyeballs. More eyeballs equals more sponsorship money. How much did that lobbyist firm want to, if we hired them, how much money do we need to give to these guys? $2.8 million. If we do the $2.8 million and we turn that over, how much can that turn into? Oh, advertising would go 300%. Can we talk to accountant? Hey, CFO, can we afford that $2.8 million? Let me run numbers for you. Yes. Give that guy $2.8 million. Great. Doctrine that is gone. No way. Yes. Oh, phenomenal, guys. Pump it up. More. And let me tell you what I believe is going on. A source, an anonymous source told me, what anonymous source? Everything was anonymous. An anonymous source told me that Graham Stephan is taking steroids and growth hormone, and he sold them the steroids. Anybody can say that nowadays. What do you mean an anonymous source said that? And now you have to go answer it.
Yeah, it's awful, because then if you address it, you have half the room who says,
you get credibility.
Then he addressed it, so there's got to be some truth to it. Why is he hiding it? And then if he doesn't, why isn't he addressing it? It must be true.
That's the sensationalism factor when you...
Well, that's the issue, right? That's the downside to having a free market, having freedom of speech on social media, and having the legacy media go away. And, you know, any voice, anybody can start making things up. Anybody can start reporting news on the internet now. But we're just kind of relying on people to be smart enough to be able to discern what are lies and what are truths. Now, a lot of people are smart enough to do it, but they still don't want to, because they'd rather exist in their comforting lies versus the uncomfortable truths, right? They'd rather exist inside of their echo chambers. Left-wingers are really bad at this, but I'll say right-wingers are also they're not immune to it, right? They still do like their echo chambers, a lot of people on the right wing. So that's the problem with the free market, with capitalism, when it comes to, you know, speech and social media and things like that. But I take this over the alternative any day of the week. You know, I'll take people being able to make things up, and then I'm having to kind of decipher like what is true, what is false, because like, to be honest, guys, it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy to see who's lying and who's not, right? Basically, anytime somebody is accused of any sort of crime when it comes to like SA or anything when it comes to women, okay, I'm just going to say it. Anything that's like a Me Too type situation, I'm immediately skeptical, and I'm going to wait until the court of law proves them to be guilty, because I just don't trust it anymore. There's been so many false accusations. Like, how can I even trust it? So that's easy. You know, whenever something like that comes out, whenever it comes out that somebody's taking steroids or something like that, I just don't give a shit. I just don't care. Like, who cares if somebody's taking steroids, you know? But wherever it really gets tricky is when it comes to, like, you know, the politics stuff, when it comes to the Hunter Biden laptop stuff and things like that. That's where it really starts to get tricky. Like I said, though, I'll take this way over the alternative any day of the week.
Get rid of, and you allow propaganda. Now anybody can say Jake Tapper's being questioned by J.D. Vance. Russia collusion. See, whoa, an FBI. What are you talking about? You don't have, well, an FBI. Yeah, we did. We looked at it. No, you didn't. So Jake is like offensive, going back and forth with Jay. And I was like, what are you talking about? You did this the entire time. Now you want to say an anonymous source that used to work with Trump back in the day said the following? Enough of these anonymous sources. So, and you're going back to independent content creators. What do independent content creators do? All we do is we question. Why did this happen? Hey, can you pull that up? Huh. Can you pull that up? Huh. What do you think happened? Is it this? Is it that? And then somebody's watching and saying, what is that white envelope they're talking about? And then let me create a Reddit to see what people think it is. Let me see 6,800, 990 comments later. Oh, there was a person that. These are 5 different things. I found out what it is. That's how this thing works. So that's scary to them, right? What you're doing, what we're doing, it's very scary for them. But long term, that's the direction we're going.
On the topic of independent content creators, why did you guys sign on Chris Cuomo to the show? I noticed that when you guys did that, I saw more hate in the comment section than I've ever seen before on Reddit, on Twitter, X. I saw all of these hate comments. What was the strategy behind that? And why have I not seen him on the show in the past few months?
I welcome all the hate. I'm not uncomfortable with that. Some of the people that called me and texted me and messaged me about how disappointed they were, the fact that we signed Chris, if I tell you the names, you wouldn't believe it, and I wouldn't tell you the names. This is not because I don't want to throw them under the bus. It's just a private conversation I have with these folks. But I understand why they would say it, because for the longest time, he made the people that didn't want to take the vaccine seem like they were the bad guys. He was part of that camp that he went through when he was at CNN, the whole ivermectin and everything. We had Dave Smith. We had this debate that took place. Now, for me, my comfort zone is controversy, chaos, and issues. Because if there's not a clash of ideas, you don't get to the truth.
If you enjoy content like this, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video.
If I want to find out how mentally and emotionally tough my kids are, and I notice one of my kids is very good at talking shit to the other ones, and I watch to see how long it takes till that person gets rattled and gets emotional, and I'll say, that's all it took? Yeah. Seriously? Yeah. I said, let me ask you a question. What do you think we are as a family? You think we're a very quiet family without your father having strong opinions? You guys are kids right now. What do you think is going to happen when people start saying stuff to you about your dad? How are you going to handle it? What do you mean? Well, let me give you some stuff right now. So I start saying, what are you going to do if somebody says this? Well, that's not, well, what are you going to tell them if they say something like that to you? How are you going to handle this? What are you going to do if somebody says this about your brother? So we now started rolling.
You know, I will say, Patrick Bet-David, he could be a really good politician. I'm not sure. I think he might be an immigrant, so I don't think he could run for president or anything like that. But he would be a really good politician, because every single time he gets asked a question, the man tells like 6 stories before he actually answers the question. But I get what he's trying to say, right? He welcomes the hate. He welcomes the disagreement. And I think that, like I was saying earlier, that's what's different between the right wing and the left wing. It's basically the entire left wing just likes to exist in their comforting lies and their echo chambers. What the right wing, they have some people like Patrick Bet-David. Now, they also have a lot of other people out there who refuse to exit their echo chamber, and they just think a lot of things that are complete nonsense to me. But that's why I like Patrick Bet-David. And, you know, I get why people didn't like the Chris Cuomo hire that PBD made, right? I get it, because he's not just another leftist, right? He's not just any random leftist. He's a guy who, you know, was really, like Patrick Bet-David just said, made people that didn't get the jab look to be the enemy, right? Look to be evil. They were killing grandmas and things like that. So I get why people were so mad. I didn't really care too much. I thought it was an interesting hire. It would add an interesting element to the show. And I appreciate the effort that Patrick Bet-David is putting in, right? I really do. I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to turn this into a slurp fest or anything like that, but I genuinely do like seeing people do different stuff and try different things. I appreciate it, especially when it comes to bringing different opinions on, because I think a lot of like I said, all of left-wing media is basically in an echo chamber, and whenever somebody exits, they just get shunned and they're irrelevant, or they just turn to the right wing. But there's a lot of right-wingers who are also stuck in the echo chamber, and I appreciate when somebody is doing everything that they can to make sure that they're not in that thing, because there's a lot of things that I hardcore disagree with Patrick Bet-David on, right? Like the Middle East is probably one of those things. What's happening in the Middle East right now, I probably hardcore disagree with Patrick Bet-David right now. And he brings somebody on that probably agrees more with me, and I appreciate the attempt.
Playing how to do press conferences, and I start poking them with comments to really piss them off. I said, you have that thin of a skin? You want to do something big, but you have that thin of a skin? I had Kevin McCarthy on the podcast a month ago, and I asked him a question. I said, let me ask you, here's a list of people that I think will run in 2028. What do you think? He didn't comment on it. But then afterwards, we walked away and we talked about some of those names of people. The one thing that he said to me that I'll reveal, which was fantastic, he said the following. He says, that guy you said that could run for office? I said, yeah. He says, he won't run. I said, why not? He's not battle tested. I said, he's not what? He's not battle tested. What does that mean? He's not battle tested. He says, you have to realize most of these guys cannot go run. When hit pieces come, the average guy cannot handle it. It doesn't matter if they're a billionaire. Did you watch the Lex Friedman interview with Trump? Mm-hmm. Did you guys watch it? Yeah. Do you remember that part where Lex asks him a question about other friends running for president and, who's it for and who's not for? He says, one, there's a lot of billionaires that don't know how to talk from stage. They just don't know how to communicate from stage. You have to know how to communicate, entertain, tell stories. Most of these guys are not good public speakers. Like Mike Bloomberg, he's not a guy that can get on stage and entertain an audience for a long time. But another part of it is, how do you do when they attack you? Guy calls me the other day and he does a story on me. And we had a very well-known guy from one of the biggest magazines that is going to be here with us on election night, hates what we stand for, not on the same page with me. Here's how the call ended. I said, let me manage expectations with you moving forward. He says, what's that? I said, you have my cell phone number. What I shared with you, if you say anything I just said in the article you're writing that I said, the way I said it, I'm always a phone call or a text away. I swear to God, if you in any way try to spin what I said to you in a way that makes me look bad or hurts my relationship with the person that you're writing the article about, you will never get a hold of me. And I'm going to be around for the next 40 years. So if you want to have a 40-year relationship with me that I'm a phone call or text away, you best be fair and straight up with me. If you're not, this is not going to work out. You know what he said to me? Pat, I may not agree with everything you're doing, but I'd like to have that relationship with you long term. I said, great. Then guess what? Let me know when you write the article, sends it to me over. These are the things that you have to get used to, having these relationships with people and managing expectations. When Jordan first came in the game and everybody was doing interviews afterwards and they started talking shit about his family, Jordan made it very clear. Hey, my family is not something I want to talk about. You can ask me any questions about the game.
And this is what I like about Patrick Bet-David, man. Like, and I appreciate these other podcast hosts as well, because they're asking him the tough questions without having the left wing, jade to it. Because I don't know for sure, but I would probably assume that Graham Stephan is left wing. He's probably a left winger. If I had to guess, and I'm sure people will correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, he's probably a left winger, but they try their best to keep like their political affiliation out of it. And they're just asking the tough questions and letting Patrick Bet-David answer. But Patrick Bet-David is so good at exactly what he's talking about right here at just setting the boundary. And whenever somebody crosses the boundary, he's going to let them know that they crossed the boundary. So he's just answering these questions like, they're rapid fire coming at him like, why'd you hire Chris Cuomo, blah, 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 blah. And he's just like, he does a great job of answering these, man. And they're super long-winded. He talks forever. He tells 6 stories before he gets to the point. But whenever he gets to the point, they really understand. And they probably have already forgotten the question that they asked in the first place. He's really good at it, man. What can I say? Let me know in the comments, though, what you guys think about what Patrick Bet-David had to say to these podcast hosts who were asking him questions. And he's just talking about why the legacy media is dead and why he hired Chris Cuomo. And he's answering them very well. And, like I said, I disagree with Patrick Bet-David on many things, but I think he did pretty good on this podcast appearance here. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about Patrick Bet David here, going on the iced coffee hour and answering these questions from Graham Stephan and the other co-host here.